to this page or this video, welcome. I've spent much of the last decade trying to figure out how to improve podcasts, and these live streams, much of my life is devoted to helping you and the people I work with figure out that exact thing. And so on this live stream, we're going to do just that. Is we're going to figure out, we're going to go over the analytics, and we're going to dive into some live analytics here and show you guys a little peek behind the curtain behind one of our shows. And what I'm going to talk about is some of the things that you can really gain from this, right? Some of the things that you can take away from looking at your analytics, and where to look and how to look as well. So we're going to jump into these things are all mixed up here, but let's see. We're not going to be talking too much about the stuff over on the left, so I screwed up on that. So bear with me here. We're going to be, see if we can just cover these up. I think, look at my live skills here. We're just going to cover that up, and I guess we don't even need to move that stuff around too much. So bear with me here as we get this stuff out of here, because that's not here today. All right, if you guys have any questions and you're catching this live, please let me know. I'd be happy to chat about whatever it is that you want to chat about. If you've got questions about your own analytics, if you've got questions about what it is that you want to, on your show, we can get into all of that. So I use Captivate. Captivate is one of my favorite tools to use for a variety of reasons, and I guess just quick reasons why. But the analytics is a big part of it. I got started back in the day using Libsyn, and a lot of you guys have used Libsyn, and I feel like I've used almost every single hosting provider under the sun. I've used Libsyn and Buzzsprout and Podbean and Anchor, which is now Spotify for podcasters, and there's a number of them that are out there. That Burberry, I mean, like, you name it, right? And what I really the thing to take away from it is a lot of them are the same, but there are a few things that I really look for in a hosting provider. One is cost, right? Is it cost effective? At one point, we were paying thousands of dollars for hosting fees for a few shows, and that's just it's not really feasible or sustainable, really. The second thing that we're looking for is like ease of use, and also is it user friendly? That's another big thing. There are a lot of tools out there that are archaic, and they're very kind of old school, and so that's something that we're also looking for. And the third thing is, do they have some of the features that make it possible for your show to grow? One of them being analytics, another thing being like marketing links, or dynamic ad insertion. So maybe all of those things are things that we can touch on as we get into things. But I want to hop in, and let's go here. So let's hop into one of our shows, and the first thing that I'll kind of note in here is these numbers are not going to be looking good, right? Just like right off the bat as they're loading up, it's kind of delaying the inevitable. But I guess I'll say that when I look, like, generally speaking as a whole over our shows, this one was a show that was really, really impacted, I think. And you can't really prove it, right? So it's like maybe there's someone that's out there saying, "Oh, Hector's just being a big old baby," and whining about Apple and such. But there was a big change that Apple made in terms of how they counted the downloads, and how those downloads were triggered, and the automatic stuff. And there's a post that I made back on my page a little while ago. You can go back and read that. But essentially, the shows that were posting, let's say, less consistently than daily, they had a lot of times, their numbers were impacted there. Now, thankfully, our show is not something that was relying on CPMs, and thankfully, our show is not something that was relying on downloads to drive our revenue. But a lot of the shows that were, I mean, they really got hit. I think Acast lost something like $7 million because of just downloads that went down, because they had signed contracts and they had come in assuming a certain number. Well, it's not that they were fake downloads, and it's not that they weren't real downloads, but the way that Apple was counting it, it was basically they were giving us extra credit. They were giving us bonus points for episodes that weren't actually listened to. They were downloaded technically. I mean, they were taking up space on that person's phone, but they weren't really listened to. They weren't streams or listens or real real engagement. And so that's the thing, is that now it's becoming a little bit more transparent. It's a little more authentic, if you will. But obviously there was a big dip, and we've been seeing it for a little bit, and I think it's just starting now to even out. Like there was a number of times where our numbers were just, I mean, we were getting slaughtered, and I couldn't, it's not like we were doing any poorly. Like the interesting thing is that our charts, this particular show, it was going up in the charts, and so it just didn't make a whole lot of sense that we were losing downloads like that and still performing in the charts. And so my only guess is to think that it had a lot to do with that, and there's a lot of documentation, a lot of people who are talking about that in the industry. So go check that out. Neither here nor there. Just all that to preface it when when you're thinking like, oh Jesus, Hector, like this is not a very good show here. Like you guys are down, big percentages. Like I think it's a little bit of a correction in the industry. Okay, a couple of things. One of the reasons that I really like Captivate here, and I mentioned that Captivate is who we use, but one of the reasons is the difference between unique listeners and total downloads. That was always a challenge with a lot of hosting providers that we had, is that they would tell us how many people downloaded it, but they wouldn't be able to tell it, or excuse me, they would tell us how many downloads that we had, but they wouldn't tell us how many people were actually downloading it. And so we could only make a guess. If we had 5,000 downloads, is that 5,000 people, or is that 2,500 people listening to two episodes? Or you could kind of see the variation in terms of the downloads, and see which episodes were being downloaded, so you could like try and put it together. But otherwise it was really hard to actually figure out what was your audience size like. And so now, because you have a download and you have a unique listener, you can create what's called or what I call a binge rate. And a binge rate is something that it's exactly what you think about it, right? It's how many episodes are your listeners, is each listener listening per week. Like how many episodes are they listening to per week? If you've got 100, let's say you've got 100 unique listeners and you've got 200 downloads in that week, well then your binge rate is 2. You've got a binge rate of 2. That means that on average people are listening to 2 episodes a week. You might have someone who's listening to 5, you might have someone who's listening to 1, and it might kind of balance itself out. But now you've got a number that you can gauge. How am I doing? How is my actual, am I getting better? Because another challenge in podcasts is we don't know if our audience is actually, like, are they enjoying it? Are they liking it? Are we growing? Because we have limited sorts of numbers. We kind of have to put this thing to piece this together. But binge rate can really tell you, are my listeners going deep on the content? And this is the nice thing, is that as you continue to grow in your library, your binge rate is naturally going to go up, because people are going to have more opportunities to binge and go deeper, because you'll have times where people will go back and listen to 20 episodes and 40 episodes or whatever it was. We've had people on our show. This show in particular is, I think, 500 episodes in, something like that, and people have listened to hundreds of episodes. They've gone back, and a lot of them say that they've said that they started episode 1. I wonder if they made it all the way there, but they definitely say that they tried. And so this is just, it's something that can give you, that's an indication of how well your content is doing. So binge rate is huge, right? So if we take this sort of in this particular instance, we've got let's say over the last 7 days, we've got 5,348 listeners. You guys see all that? Checking all my tax stuff. If you have 53 listeners and 11,000 downloads, your binge rate is about 2, right? Something like that. Like a little, right around 2, a little less than 2, maybe a little more than 2. I don't know, something like that. But you've got your number, right? Now, what you can do, let me hop back here. We'll hop back here. and see if we can do this. This is what we needed. Okay, so if we get an actual number, so now we've got unique listeners. We've got 5,348 unique listeners divided by 11,000 downloads. Actually, we should do the other way. It's 11,000 downloads. Someone doesn't know how to type, or divided by 5348. Our binge rate is 2.05. So that may mean something to you. Now, right away, it doesn't. I mean, it can kind of tell you, like, okay, it gives you an idea people are listening to 2 episodes. What is important to do is to track this over time. You look up in next quarter, right? In May or something like that, you look up and you say, okay, what's my binge rate at now? Am I at 2.5? Am I at 2.7? Am I at 2.8? Okay, great. We're moving in the right direction. Our listeners are starting to engage with it more. They're starting to listen to it more. You might you might realize, wow, we went down to 1.8 or something like that, and that could happen too if you also look up and you realize that your unique listener base went from 5,000 to 10,000. Well, maybe your binge rate is going to go down a little bit. That's okay too. So all these things are, a lot of times they're baselines and barometers at first to be able to tell where you're at and what you're doing, and then you can make adjustments and see if it works. And if it doesn't, then you can try something new. Or if it does, you can keep doing more of it. So this is one of the first things that we look at is our binge rate. I want to check in here, and it looks like everything is working here on the stream. I don't get all the questions popping up to me, unfortunately. So I'm going to check in here on the good old mobile device to see if there's any questions that came in. But if you guys are catching this live, would love for you to check in and let me know where you're tuning in from, or if you made it this far on the replay, bless your soul, and let me know where you are checking in from, and if you guys have any questions, we can get into those as well. Oh, it looks like it sent a notification, so, and there's no comments, so blow up the comment feed there, y'all, and let's make this what you want to make it. All right, so the next thing that I look at is, here's another thing. And once again, like you can see our downloads over the last 12 months, they got hit like hard right around when Apple put out their update, which is like November, December area. And obviously we were trying to figure out some stuff maybe even before. So in this instance, like, we had some really, really great downloads in May, then it kind of tapered off, and you can see here, like, right there when Apple made their iOS shift, I mean, it really, like, and people kind of caught up to the update right around here is where it seems that people were finally forced to update their phone, and, here we are. So it's like, it really, oh, you guys aren't even, you can't even see. So let's, I'm so sorry. Let me do that again. So you can see here, like, over the last 12 months, here's this chart, and we really peaked out in May, with some really big numbers. And then you can see here in November is where the iOS shift started to happen. And then it kind of, started to really take hold. So the interesting thing is like, when we talk about the people we talk to the owners of this show, one thing that's really apparent is that, like, the show is still working. The show is still effective as a lead generator for their business. And so that's also the nice thing, is that we weren't really reliant on downloads. And you can imagine that if our income was based on downloads, and we go from 196,000 down to 76,000, something like that, that's like cut in half, right? And that's literally what a lot of people kind of experience, because of the way that now I'm not going to also make this all about the iOS downloads, right? There's definitely, we were in a strategy session with this particular show, and their host trying to figure, not figure out because that sounds like a tough word, but talking about what do we do to improve this, because we looked at the numbers and we realized like something, we've got to change something, we got to adjust something, and we're making some large adjustments in this particular instance to some of the content and the topics, and perhaps even the name, and really the general direction of the show, because of a lot of reasons, mainly the what's in alignment with what makes most sense for the hosts, and for obviously the owners of the show, um, and making it something that they can still be excited about, and that their audience can still be excited about. So that's huge. What else do we do? Okay, so let's go into some of these more advanced analytics here. So listener behavior is another thing that we'll look at. So we can kind of hop out and let's say last 90 days. So here's another thing. So what's not also really interesting is that even though the downloads, seem to be, well, I guess let's say we could probably see the shift if we do like all time. Let's see if it pops it out to that. Is that it? I thought oh, there we go. Okay. So this makes more sense. So you can see here, what's really interesting, and this is kind of apparent, right? What you'll notice, like this is makes the iOS thing kind of obvious, I guess to me, because you'll notice here is that our audience has stayed relatively, I mean, relatively, I don't want to say stagnant. That sounds terrible. But it's been relatively the same. In fact, over the last little bit, it's gone up a smidge. But you'll notice that the numbers right around, let's see, it looks like here's the cliff, right? The cliff happened right in November when the iOS shift happened. And so you'll notice that boom, right away, it kind of dropped. So this is like, when I'm looking at this, I'm also, even just for me, I'm talking out to myself. I'm like, well, this is actually encouraging, because for the longest time we were like, what's going on? What's wrong? Why are our numbers dropping? Why are they dwindling? And it's like, oh, in fact, our unique listeners over time have actually remained rather consistent. And so, we've probably lost some, we've gained some, but there's a little bit of churn, but there's what's nice is that people are sticking around, right? It's not like we've totally screwed everything up. What's real is that the reporting was just all so funky and inflated that now, if there's actually a better indication of what's actually real. So this is another thing that I like to do, is zoom out, and obviously over the lifetime, this is something that we can kind of see from, see here. What also we can do is in a shorter term, right? If I like look at the last month, you'll notice here that there are some spikes, and they're usually on days where we publish episodes. And so for this particular show, it's like Tuesdays and Fridays. So you'll notice that this is on, let's see, it says it spikes on Thursday and it spikes on Monday. So it looks like it's just shifted one day off. Maybe it's because, I don't know, but we publish on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it makes sense that there is a spike, or excuse me, Tuesdays and Fridays. So it makes sense that there would be spikes, twice a week around Mondays and Thursdays. There's your spikes. Here's your spike on a Monday. Here's your spike on a Monday. There's your spike on the Thursday. If you look over here, there's our Thursday spike. There's our Monday spike. And you can see like from those spikes, that's like generally, those are your top listeners, right? Those are like how many rabid fans do you have? Those are the ones that are downloading it on the very first day. It's top of their list in their app. They're the ones that they're downloading it right away as soon as it comes out. And that could be their app, and that could be them. But that's something to note too that we look at, right? What's our spike number, and is our spike number going up, right? This spike number, you'll notice that the unique listeners, I'm going to turn off downloads here. The unique listeners is kind of dipped, but that might have been, there was some, some other sort of like funky stuff here, right? So analytics is always something that can happen here. But what I'm looking for is a couple of things. What's my spike number? Is my spike number, is it going up? Is it going down? That means, am I getting more subscribers? Am I getting more engaged listeners? Or am I usually like new followers, new listeners? Because those are the ones that are gonna download the app right. The app's gonna download it right away. And then let me zoom out a little more and see if there's any other kind of like irregularities. The other thing that I might look for is like other abnormal spikes. So we've got like these just kind of regular Monday, Thursday spikes, which are right around the Tuesday, Friday episodes. But then, like, what happened here? Like, I'm curious. Maybe it's an analytics thing. Maybe it's not. But then also, you also have this thing where there's this other double spike here. So it's like we can go back and look and say like, what happened here? We had this normal, we had, what was this? So there's our Monday spike and or Thursday and Friday. So maybe that spike just got doubled, got cut in half. But I'm looking for abnormalities to see, was there something that worked? Was there a particular episode that went, what did well? Was there a particular promotion or a social post or something like that went well? That's something that I'm trying to look for here. These are also great to just look at. One things that we look at is the app, right? You can see a lot of our listeners are Apple, but that's also, this is over the 90 days. Let's see, over 28, that ratio might be a little bit less. You'll notice that ratio, still very high on Apple. This is one of our highest shows. A lot of them are starting to look more like 50-50 Apple and Spotify. So that's just kind of important to note, because I think that as a host, a lot of hosts gave Apple free marketing and free publicity, because they're like, leave a rating on Apple Podcasts, which was great and fantastic, because that's how people found the show. But I would also be mindful of just giving Apple telling people to go subscribe to you on Apple. Like, I'm not sure how valuable that is anymore necessarily in terms of like discoverability and promotion. If I'm making an honest suggestion, I would tell all of our hosts to tell them to recommend them on Spotify, or to go in and leave a rating on Spotify. It's easier, and Spotify is actually doing a lot more to connect and promote shows, like to help the discoverability of podcasts, than Apple is. And so just something to think about. And you'll know, if your Spotify percentage is like super low, like I would probably have a conversation with this host, and we're going to rewrite the outros actually to include leaving a rating on Spotify, so that we can get this ratio a little bit higher, because that Apple number is going to be what it's going to be. But if we can start to grow it on Spotify, it's one of the places where that can actually grow organically, because they have, similar to other social platforms, they know who is listening to what shows, and they're actively trying to pair the show, like to promote those shows to those people, because they know that if they are on the app more, it's going to be better for them as a company. So that's what they're trying to help with the discoverability, and match sort of the tastes and interests of the listeners, so that they come back. And what this does is, for you, it can actually help you to grow your audience. And I think that it just behooves you to tell people to promote, or excuse me, leave a rating and review of your show on Spotify. So I'm going to check in here, see if there's anything that, any questions that have been asked. I feel like I've been rambling for a little bit, but if you guys think that this is valuable, or there's anything that you're learning or getting out of it, let me know. And if there's any questions, anything specific that you want to cover, throw those down into the comments as well. All right, let's keep rolling. So next thing that I look at here is performance comparison is great. This is actually kind of interesting. The only thing is that it requires a little bit of manual work. Let's see here. I don't know why it's not working here, but this is okay. So let's go here. Let's do this one. This one should be easier. So the next thing that I'm going to look at is my episodes overview. And once I get a general idea of how am I doing, right? Am I doing better? Am I doing worse? Is the audience engaging with me? Are they not? Like all that sort of thing. Well, the next reason is like, okay, why? Why am I doing better? What's working here? What's not? And how can we replicate it? I mean, I think the easiest thing that you can do is to figure out what's working and do more of that. Like just simply like that's it. Figure out what's working, do more of it. I realized like I saw some video the other day about someone was complaining that this person keeps saying the same thing over and over again. And what was interesting is like it was working though, because this person was like they were blowing up because they were talking to a specific person about a specific problem, and they were just talking about it in all the different sorts of ways. And I don't know why this thing's not working right now, but they were talking about it in all the different sorts of ways that you could talk about it. They would talk about it from this perspective and that perspective and from this, and how to do this and how to do that, and why this is important, and why you should consider this, and or, things to be mindful of, and things to be aware of, and things to look out for, and just all these different things about the same topic. And so I would encourage you to figure out what that topic is. What is that thing that your customers are dead set on figuring out, and talk about that, and talk about it a lot, because once you do that, those people are going to start to notice, and then you're going to have people that right away they're going to jump, and they're going to be they're going to come to you and reach out for support. But there's a lot of people that you're going to plant seeds with, and that you're going to be able to um, develop those relationships, or they're going to come to you when the timing is right. So it finally cooked up here, so let's hop back into the episode's overview. And what I'm going to do is, let's see. Okay, so over the last month, I'm going to say total downloads over the last month. And you'll see here that I've got some, some episodes that stand out. Now, one of the things that's going to be obvious is that there's going to be the episodes that released about a month ago, because the most people listen to that. So we're going to leave those out. What we're going to look for is things that are out of the ordinary. So most of the ones are going to be from January or February, but we're going to see if there's anything from, like, I don't know, anything before December, anything before, so it looks like December is our oldest one, December, maybe even like a November. So I'm going to be frank, I'm not seeing a whole lot of stuff stand out right now, which is okay. But this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking like, is there something that really stands out? So here's this. Okay, so here we go. Here's this April one. So this April one is just, it's weird, right? October, August, October, September, November, October, November, and then we've got this April one. So like this April one came out what was that? 7 months before this episode, and is still this month getting more downloads than that episode. So this says something to me, right? That people are going back, and they're looking for this sort of content, or somehow this content is being discovered organically outside of just the feed. Because to go back to April, that is a lot of episodes that someone has to go back and scroll through. So it's unlikely that they're finding it that way. It's actually more likely that they're finding it through search. And so when I look at this, if I hop into here, this one is, how Google's big tracking decision will affect your business. Could be the guest. Could be the title. But in any case, this is something that we that stands out and that we pay attention to. So I think that's something to take a note from right away. All right, I think how long have we been going? We've been going for a half hour. I hope I've given some value. Hopefully you guys have learned some stuff today. If you guys have, I would love for you to share in the comments what you've learned because I don't see anything there. So I'm feeling no, just kidding. I don't feel like this was a waste of time because we're gonna take these videos. This is probably going to end up on the YouTube channel. It is already live on our YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, search Hector Podcast or Hector Santiesteban, and these streams go out intermittently. But we're gonna do them more often, and you can subscribe for more podcasting know-how. Also, we do have a podcast. You'll see it over here. Look at that. I got it right this time. Boom. Podcasting Success Secrets, which does come out every single week, wherever you get your podcast, especially on Spotify. So if you listen on Spotify, I would love for you to leave us a rating. You can't leave reviews yet, but we'd love for you to leave a rating with as many stars as you think I'm worthy of. But we do put out stuff there every single week. And then if you are wherever you're catching this, if you guys are catching this on LinkedIn or you're catching this on Facebook or you happen to be on YouTube or the wonderful X slash Twitter, we're going to be releasing some of these clips out there as well. So you'll see some of this content being repurposed. So even if nobody thought this was valuable, we are going to make this valuable for us here at Amplify Media, where we make podcasting easy for you. So I appreciate you being here. I love that, and I'm honored and humbled to be on your podcasting journey. If you guys have questions, leave those in the comments, and I'll come back and answer them. I'll do my best to come back and answer them afterwards. See you later, y'all. We out of here.